Geno Smith contract details. The Las Vegas Raiders have officially signed Geno Smith to a new contract extension. While some people are speculating that this could essentially be a one-year deal, with the Raiders potentially having an easy out if they choose, I don't think that's the full story. Based on the structure and cap implications, I'd say this deal is a bit more involved. Today we're getting more details about Smith's contract, as well as updates on the Raiders' offseason program and schedule. So let's break it all down. First, let's talk about the Raiders' current situation. This is win-now mode for Las Vegas, as emphasized by head coach Josh McDaniels and general manager Dave Ziegler. The team is in the midst of making moves to compete immediately, and I'll explain how Geno Smith fits into that equation. I'll also share my thoughts on other key aspects, including my critique of DJ Turner's performances, which we'll dive into later in the video. Contract breakdown now. While the official numbers haven't yet appeared on sites like Over the Cap or Spot Track, we've got solid reporting from Mike Florio at NBC Sports. Even though some fans might be critical of Florio, he's a reputable journalist who's provided some clarity on Geno Smith's contract details. I'll walk you through what we know so far. According to Florio, Geno Smith's contract includes a base salary of $26.5 million for 2025. Out of that, $18.5 million is fully guaranteed, with another $8 million becoming guaranteed if he's still on the roster after the third day of the 2026 league year. Additionally, there's a non-guaranteed base salary of $39.5 million for 2027, along with annual incentives worth $3.5 million. Breaking down the deal, let's visualize it in a more digestible format. Geno Smith originally had a one-year contract for 2025, but that's clearly changed now. The new extension is a two-year, $43.75 million deal. However, one thing to remember is that the reported contract numbers often don't reflect the full details. The guaranteed money is what really matters here. For example, while Smith's reported $30 million per year over 5 years may sound impressive, only the guaranteed portions are secured. For the Raiders, the structure of Smith's deal is relatively team-friendly. In 2025, his total compensation will be $43.5 million, including a $3.5 million incentive. This won't necessarily be his full cap hit, as there may be room for adjustments like voidable years, but this is the actual cash he will see. Flexibility for 2026 and beyond. In 2026, the guaranteed portion of Smith's contract drops to $18.5 million. This gives the Raiders some flexibility. If Smith underperforms, or if another quarterback emerges as a better option, perhaps Aiden O'Connell, Las Vegas could cut Smith and only incur $18.5 million in dead cap, saving $8 million in the process. Of course, the decision would need to be made before the third day of the 2026 league year, but it's a favorable situation for the team. Finally, in 2027, there's no guaranteed money in the deal. Geno Smith's base salary is set to be $39.5 million, with additional yearly incentives worth $3.5 million. Conclusion. Overall, while the deal might appear costly, it's structured in a way that gives the Raiders plenty of options moving forward. The flexibility built into Smith's contract makes it relatively easy for the Raiders to pivot if needed, while still rewarding Smith for his performance. The total value of the contract, including incentives, adds up to $116.5 million, making this a well-thought-out move for the Raiders as they continue to build a competitive team. Raiders' flexibility and Geno Smith's impact. I really like the direction the Raiders are taking with this move because it gives them a lot of flexibility. While I don't think trading a third-round pick for a quarterback means you're uncertain about his future, the fact that the Raiders can move on from Geno Smith after 2 years with minimal cap impact is a win for the team. The NFL draft can be unpredictable, and who knows? Maybe someone like ShedeurSanders has an unexpected drop and is available in the third round. While that's unlikely, it's a possibility, and the Raiders would be in a position to draft him if they see him as a future star. Whether it's Sanders, JacksonDart, or Will Howard, no one can predict exactly who the quarterback of the future will be. The point is, Smith's contract gives the Raiders the ability to make moves and still stay flexible. Some fans have criticized the deal, especially with the reported numbers, such as the $43.5 million per year. However, if we look at the entire contract, it's actually pretty favorable for the Raiders. Over the full deal, Geno Smith's salary averages around $37 million annually, which is a reasonable amount for a solid starting quarterback. This contract allows the Raiders to compete now while keeping their options open for the future. The key takeaway here is that the Raiders aren't locked into any long-term commitments if things don't pan out. They have room to maneuver, which is exactly what you need in a league as unpredictable as the NFL. With this flexibility, the team can focus on drafting the best player available rather than reaching for needs. Whether it's a tackle, running back, safety, or any other position, they can take the best player on the board without having to worry about a quarterback squeeze. Max Crosby on Geno Smith, Raiders star defensive end. Max Crosby shared his thoughts on Geno Smith's extension through Jordan Schultz. Crosby expressed his excitement, saying, "I'm hyped. Geno's a baller, and exactly what we needed for this team and organization. It starts with the work and commitment to the brotherhood. Now it's our time to prove it. Let's go win." Geno Smith has always been known for his work ethic and commitment. If you follow him on social media, you'll see him constantly working out with teammates and putting in the effort to improve. That's exactly the type of leadership the Raiders need at the quarterback position. The last thing the Raiders need is a quarterback who's more focused on playing video games than winning football games. Geno Smith is dedicated, and that's what this team needs to move forward. Raiders offseason schedule. Now let's shift gears and talk about the Raiders offseason schedule, which was released recently. The official dates for the Raiders offseason program are set, and one interesting note is that the team gets an extra voluntary veteran minicamp from April 21st to 23rd, thanks to their new head coach. This gives the team an additional opportunity to get organized and work together early. The Raiders will report for the offseason program on April 8th, which is just around the corner. This marks the first day that players and coaches can get into the facility to start reviewing tape, organizing team activities, and preparing for the season. While they can't get on the field and start physical activities yet, it's a critical time for the team to start getting ready for the upcoming year. Max Crosby, known for his work ethic, is one of the first players in the building every day, arriving at 6:15 a.m. Offensive lineman Jackson Johnson is right there with him. Crosby shared that some players are only concerned with showing up when they're required, while others, like him, put in extra effort to get better. That kind of commitment is crucial for a successful team, and it's the kind of mentality that the Raiders need to foster moving forward. Raiders' commitment to excellence and upcoming schedule. It's clear that some players are just more committed than others when it comes to greatness. Starting April 8th, we'll begin to see which players are truly dedicated. As fans, we may not always notice, but these details matter. I noticed this firsthand at the Hula Bowl, where the difference in work ethic was immediately apparent. Some players were consistently on time, while others struggled with punctuality. Some were natural leaders, bringing energy and positivity, while others took a back seat. It's not that one approach is necessarily better than the other, but it's easy to spot who is putting in the effort. For new coaching staff like JohnSpytek and PeteCarroll, it's crucial to instill a strong work ethic in these players. The team may not be familiar with the high standards set by guys like Dylan Parham or Jack Jones, and there have been concerns around Jones. Hopefully, those concerns prove to be exaggerated, and with the right coaching, he can unlock his potential. His talent is undeniable. Raiders offseason schedule. Key dates. Now, let's talk about the Raiders offseason schedule. The big news is that the Raiders are getting an additional voluntary veteran minicamp, thanks to their new coaching staff. This 3-day minicamp will take place from April 21st to 23rd and gives the team an extra opportunity to get on the field and build cohesion. The Raiders' official reporting date is April 8th, which means players and coaches can start to gather in the building and begin preparations. While they won't be able to get on the field for contact drills yet, it's an important time to start organizing, watching film, and building chemistry. After this minicamp, the team will take a short break before heading into the rookie minicamp, which happens just before the OTAs, organized team activities. The rookie minicamp's dates aren't finalized yet, but it's expected to happen in early May. Following that, OTAs will kick off on May 19th, marking the return of the veterans. OTAs allow for more on-field work, including 7-on-7 and 11-on-11 drills, though contact will still be limited. The next significant event after OTAs will be the mandatory minicamp from June 10th to 12th. This is when we'll start hearing rumors about potential holdouts, as players who are unhappy with their contracts or playing time may begin making noise. Raiders' offensive depth and areas for improvement. Let's shift focus to the Raiders' offensive depth and what improvements need to be made. This is a team that is clearly all in on the short term, and you can see that with moves like the Geno Smith signing. If you look at Max Crosby's contract, you'll notice it's structured in a way that makes him tradable in a few years, with minimal guarantees after the first 2 seasons. That gives the Raiders some flexibility moving forward, and teams might even offer a lot in exchange for Crosby if they see him as an asset in his prime. A player like Crosby is similar to Khalil Mack, who was traded at 30 years old despite still being in his prime, but his contract at the time made him harder to trade. Max Crosby's contract is more team-friendly, which is one reason I don't think he'll be moved in the near future. But the Raiders have positioned themselves for a win-now mentality. Geno Smith's contract also reflects this. The Raiders aren't planning for a long-term rebuild. Instead, they're looking to maximize their chances of winning over the next 3 to 4 years. However, there are still areas to address, particularly the receiver depth. While Trey Tucker has plenty of upside and there's potential in Jakobi Meyers' tape, the receiving core still has a lot of room for improvement. The Raiders need to shore up that depth if they want to compete at the highest level. The Raiders' wide receiver and running back needs one. Concern for the Raiders is the potential reliance on Trey Tucker if Jakobi Meyers gets injured. If Tucker is thrust into a starting role, can he step up and be the guy for the Raiders? Honestly, I don't think so. The worst-case scenario for the Raiders would be Geno Smith having to throw passes to Christian Wilkerson or Jeff Foreman against top-tier cornerbacks like Jalen Ramsey or Patrick Surtain. That's why the Raiders have to add a difference-making wide receiver, especially with the 6th overall pick. There's a significant difference between the quality of wide receivers you can get at pick 6 versus what might be available in the second round. As for running backs, while Ashton Gentry is a great talent, the Raiders could still find a solid back in the second round, given the depth at the position this year. We also need to acknowledge the running back situation. Sure, Raheem Mostert was brought in, but he's aging and his injury history raises concerns. The last thing the Raiders want is to see Zamir White as their RB1 again, something that didn't work out well last year. Moving forward, adding both a running back and a wide receiver is crucial for the Raiders to remain competitive. Considering other positions, right tackle, and more. If the top players like Ashton Gentry and Travis Hunter are off the board by the time the Raiders pick, another area they need to consider is right tackle. If a top prospect like Armin Meal is available and you believe he's the best tackle in this draft, you have to consider addressing that position. Tackle, along with receiver, cornerback, and defensive line, are some of the most valuable positions to draft high. As safety, for example, while important, isn't generally a top 10 pick position due to its lower value compared to those other positions. Brock Bowers was one of the best players in last year's class, but fell to the 13th pick because tight ends typically don't have the same value as a tackle or corner. So, when you're drafting high, you want to ensure the player you're taking has a clear impact. DJ Glaze, film breakdown, and room for improvement. Let's turn the focus to DJ Glaze. While some may think I'm being overly critical, I've watched a lot of great tackles in their rookie years, like Christian Darrisaw and Rashawn Slater, and Glaze doesn't remind me of them at this point. That doesn't mean he can't develop, but when the Raiders put him in true pass rush situations against the Chargers, he struggled. He had to block one-on-one against JoeyBosa, a solid defensive end, and the results weren't pretty. You can see here how Bosa was able to work around the edge and get pressure on the quarterback. There are a lot of moments like this in Glaze's tape. While I understand that Bosa is a high-level player, Glaze needs to improve his ability to anchor and hold his ground in these situations. To be fair, there's always a chance that Glaze improves significantly, just like some other players who showed slow development early on in their careers. But right now, in true one-on-one pass protection scenarios, his performance leaves much to be desired. That said, there's still plenty of time for him to develop, and I'm not ruling out the possibility that he becomes a very good player down the road. DJ Glaze. Areas for improvement in pass protection. DJ Glaze has had his share of struggles, especially in true 5-man pass protection sets, which the Raiders have used more frequently in certain games. In these scenarios, the offensive linemen are expected to block without much help, and Glaze's issues were apparent during this game against the Chargers. One play stands out where Glaze commits a little early, and he and Michael Mayer fail to properly handle their assignment. While this isn't a complete disaster, it shows a lack of cohesion and timing, which can be detrimental in these high-pressure situations. It's not all on Glaze, some blame can be attributed to Mayer as well. But the fact remains that these kinds of mistakes can lead to lost snaps. In another play, Glaze is asked to block with two tight ends helping him out. This setup should theoretically provide more time for him to set up in his pass protection. The defensive end, who is lined up against him, fakes inside before ripping outside. Glaze struggles with this move and is ultimately beat. While the quarterback gets the ball out quickly, this is still a losing rep for Glaze because, in real game situations, that pressure would have resulted in a sack if the ball hadn't been thrown. Understanding the importance of a clean pass protection. If the Raiders are going to rely on Glaze long-term, he'll need to clean up these issues. It's also important to note that the Raiders can't always rely on chipping or extra blockers. While Michael Mayer can assist in these situations, you can't chip on every play. Offensive schemes in the NFL, particularly with the five-man pass protection, often demand one-on-one blocks. These situations reveal a lot about a player's ability to hold up in pass protection. Glaze simply hasn't consistently proven he can anchor against powerful pass rushers, like JoeyBosa in those circumstances. Even though the Raiders did this unique approach in this game, trying to test their offensive line with these five-man pass sets, it's clear that Glaze hasn't fully adjusted to the demands of the position. He struggles with maintaining his block and doesn't always have the right footwork to recover when a defender makes a move. There's also a noticeable delay in his response time, which results in the defender getting an edge on him. Conclusion: development needed for Glaze. I've watched countless offensive tackles over the years, and while Glaze is a rookie and can certainly improve, these early signs suggest he's not quite at the level of some of the top-tier tackles from his draft class. The tools are there for him to develop, but it will take time and more consistent effort in refining his pass protection techniques. It's worth noting that Aidan McConnell, the quarterback in this game, did a good job climbing the pocket in some situations. However, even with that, Glaze was still pushed back into the quarterback's space, which isn't ideal for an offensive tackle. While it's not a disastrous play, it's certainly a lost rep, and highlights areas where Glaze needs to be more effective. Overall, while Glaze has room to grow, his rookie year has shown that there are significant aspects of his game that need refinement if he's going to succeed as a starting tackle for the Raiders. It's not the end of the road for him, but there are definitely key areas that need work. Final thoughts on DJ Glaze and the Raiders roster. To wrap up the film breakdown on DJ Glaze, it's clear that while he has potential, there's still a lot of work to do. As we saw with some of the plays, Glaze struggles with consistency and pass protection, particularly when he's in one-on-one situations. But given that he's a rookie, there's plenty of room for growth. Hopefully, he can develop over time, and we'll see whether the Raiders can get the most out of him. There's a chance he improves significantly, but for now, these are the areas he needs to focus on. I wanted to do an entire breakdown of DJ Glaze's play throughout the season, but unfortunately, NFL tape is heavily demonetized, which makes it difficult to put together these in-depth breakdowns. The amount of time spent on these videos compared to the reward is just not worth it sometimes, as they get demonetized immediately. If you're interested in more film breakdowns, you can check out my other channel, The Football Scout, but know that every video on that channel also gets demonetized. Regardless, I still felt it was important to share these insights on Glaze. Raiders' defensive depth and potential improvements. Shifting focus to the Raiders' defense, there are a few areas that need attention. Jack Jones has talent, but from what I've heard, his passion for football and effort levels have been questionable. If that's the case, the Raiders may need to move on, or at least put him in a situation where he's on the bench, which might motivate him. Ultimately, he has the skill, but he needs the right mindset. The Raiders need to figure out both cornerback positions, including the slot corner role. It could be someone like Eric Stokes or Sam Webb stepping into that role, or potentially Jack Jones moving inside, but the cornerback situation definitely needs sorting. As for the linebackers, the Raiders have some options, though it's unlikely they'll draft a linebacker this year. I think the linebacker core will improve as younger players develop. Guys like Amari Gaynor, who showed potential in the preseason, and Tommy Eichenberg, a fifth-round pick from last year, could step up. With linebackers, development often happens between years 3 and 6, so there's hope that these young guys can show improvement. Devin White's role as the weak side linebacker and Orlando Roberts as the strong side or middle linebacker could provide a good balance. White would bring speed and hitting ability, while Roberts would handle the inside duties, shutting down the run. That said, linebacker play can be effective with the right system, and the Raiders have a solid defensive line to support them. the Raiders' path to Super Bowl contention. Looking ahead, I believe the key to the Raiders' success in 2025 will be their defensive line. If they continue to have an elite defensive front, they could make a strong push for a Super Bowl. However, improving the cornerback positions and ensuring solid linebacker play will also be crucial to the team's success. What do you all think the Raiders need to do to really go all in for a Super Bowl run? Let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more updates. I'll be back with more content soon.